It is the soundless, invisible collapse of a lifetime of carefully constructed fantasy. The moment the cultural script they followed, the one that promised limitless time and endless options, turns out to be a deliberate, comprehensive lie. This is the truth about the wall nobody talks about, and the profound, crippling regret that defines the second half of life for an entire generation who played the game exactly as they were told. We are talking about the harsh truth of choices made during the peak years, the 20s and early 30s, that seemed liberating, empowering, and rational at the time. Focus on your career, accumulate experiences, prioritize self-discovery, and delay all forms of commitment. The message was explicit. A successful woman doesn't need a man until she decides she wants one, and that time is always malleable. An entire generation of women internalized this narrative, believing they were pioneering a new era of freedom, never realizing they were walking onto a financial and biological minefield engineered by interests that benefited from their delayed commitment. The foundation of this deep regret, which becomes crushing after 40, is the sudden, jarring realization that time did not stop for them. They were sold the idea that life operated on their timeline, that the reproductive system was a machine they could toggle on or off at will, and that the relationship marketplace would always offer them the premium options they grew accustomed to in their peak years. Now past 40, they look around and see the wreckage of that fantasy. The options they dismissed years ago are happily married with children. The career they built, while financially successful, is cold comfort when the house is empty and the biological window has slammed shut. If this analysis resonates deeply with you, you understand the magnitude of this problem. This pattern is global, but the pressure feels isolating until you realize millions are witnessing the same harsh reality unfold. We must dissect the fundamental choices that lead to this regret. In their 20s and early 30s, many modern women possessed peak relational leverage. They received overwhelming attention from high-quality men. The dating apps, the social scenes, the culture, all catered to her market value at that moment. And because options felt infinite, commitment felt foolish. This exposure to continuous, high-intensity attention rewires the female brain. It establishes a baseline expectation for relationship dynamics that is simply unsustainable. Stability, faithfulness, and the quiet consistency required for long-term pair bonding felt boring compared to the chaos they normalized. They confuse peace with stagnation and kindness with weakness. By the time they hit 40, the comparison engine built during years of high-option dating is permanently stuck in the on position. They are trapped in a cycle where they demand the security of the decent man, the one they previously ignored, but resent him because he doesn't deliver the excitement of the men they wasted their 20s on. They seek stability, yet they are psychologically addicted to the chaos they spent a decade pursuing. This contradiction is the core engine of their regret, and the reason why the marriages they desperately seek after 40 often implode quickly. The culture promised endless fertility, yet they face the stark, undeniable statistics of declining egg quality and quantity. They see friends who relied on career advice over biological reality now spending small fortunes on painful, invasive, and often unsuccessful IVF treatments. But once 40 arrives and the interventions fail, or the genetic risks become too high, the panic turns to deep, existential mourning. The regret becomes physical and omnipresent. They realize that their peak years, the only time their body offered optimal conditions for bearing and raising healthy children with minimal medical intervention, were spent pursuing professional titles, exotic vacations, and superficial relationships that left them fundamentally alone. The achievement of independence and financial success, which was supposed to be the prize, suddenly feels hollow compared to the deep, primal need for family connection and legacy. This is the wall nobody talks about, the intersection of biological decline and marketplace devaluation. The marketplace shifts brutally. High-value men in their 40s, who are often entering their own financial and social peak, still have access to women in their late 20s and early 30s, women who represent higher biological potential and less accumulated relationship history. The woman over 40 finds herself competing with the very women she was told she was superior to just a decade earlier. Her options are now severely polarized. Or she can attempt to date younger men, an exercise that often reinforces her feelings of declining attractiveness and instability. The choices she made in her 20s, rejecting the stable, good man because he lacked excitement, now haunt her daily, because the stable, good man who is still available is often the one who couldn't get her attention a decade ago. She is forced to settle for a man who is the physical embodiment of her realized failure to secure a high-value, committed partner when her value was highest. The psychological consequence of this forced settlement is continuous, simmering dissatisfaction. This internal conflict manifests as incessant criticism, emotional detachment, and an inability to maintain genuine intimacy. She looks at her successful career and her empty apartment and asks, "Was this worth the price?" And now she stands at the wall of 40, realizing the exchange rate was catastrophic, and the items she traded away are now permanently unavailable. This regret is compounded by the fact that society offers no support or acknowledgement for this pain. She is trapped in a public narrative of success while privately grappling with profound, irreversible failure. The shame forces her to double down on the performance. The veneer of the successful, independent woman who needs nothing and regrets nothing. She cannot admit the truth to her peers because they are all performing the same script. She cannot admit the truth to her partner because that would expose the fact that he was the settlement prize. The resentment grows, fueled by the gap between the partner she settled for and the idealized partner she still believes she deserved. She becomes hypercritical, leveraging her financial success as justification for emotional entitlement. The pain of this reality is extreme, but ignoring it is not an option for the men who are often recruited to be the solution to this crisis. You must recognize these patterns. The choice is yours, but the reality is not debatable. We recognize the immense responsibility that comes with processing these dynamics. You deserve a partner who chose you out of genuine desire, not strategic necessity. I want you to join this community of men committed to reality. We need to hear your perspective on this quiet, devastating realization after 40. The simplest way to show your commitment to understanding this reality is by commenting with the phrase, "The wall is real." Drop that comment right now and demonstrate your willingness to face these truths head-on. Affirm your commitment to true clarity and subscribe to this channel immediately. Click that like button on this video because your active participation signals to the algorithm that this information must reach every man who is currently being misled by the mainstream narrative. And I promise you this: what comes next is perhaps the most critical information of all. We are going to expose exactly what happens 5, 10, and 15 years after the initial regret sets in. Do not miss the next installment. Let me tell you something that happens right after the honeymoon ends, right after the wedding album is stored away, and right after that late-age child is finally delivered. This is the moment when the modern woman, who rushed into commitment with a stable man she settled for, hits the final devastating wall, the wall of regret, compounded by the chilling reality of comparison. We discussed the strategic repositioning, the shift from prioritizing excitement to demanding stability when her market value dropped below the commitment threshold. Now we must examine the internal cost of that transaction, because the debt always comes due. Understand this fundamental psychological truth. She did not choose you because you were her passionate desire. She chose you because you were the necessary solution. She recognized your stability, your good character, and your willingness to commit, qualities she previously dismissed as boring or insufficient. Now she relies on those qualities, but she still doesn't desire them with the intensity she felt for the high-excitement men of her past. She is safe, yes. She has the structure she needs, yes. Her brain, trained for years to seek novelty and compare options, doesn't shut off just because a ring is placed on her finger. Instead, the comparison machine turns inward, and the target becomes you. She resents your predictability because it confirms she settled for a life without the thrill she once chased. And crucially, she resents you for witnessing her desperation. This unearned, misdirected resentment is the engine of the post-40 marital collapse. Before we dive into how this plays out in the destruction of the home, let me ask you a crucial question about connection. Tell me the city you are watching this from. Knowing where this message resonates helps us understand the true global reach of this modern dilemma. Now, let us examine the mechanics of the inevitable breakdown. The late-age wife often initiates conflict because her internal dissatisfaction needs an external target. You become the relentless subject of criticism. The job you secured to provide the stability she demanded is now boring. Your friends are unambitious. Your physical routine, which keeps you stable, is now perceived as lacking excitement. Every positive quality that made you a high-value provider when she was panicking suddenly becomes a flaw, because those qualities prevent the very chaos and thrill she subconsciously misses. This resentment is particularly potent around intimacy. For a woman who spent her peak years valuing sexual variety and casual encounters, the transition to monogamy, especially with a man she settled for, is often emotionally stifling. Her body may be present, but her mind is distant, haunted by the ghosts of partners past. The frequency drops sharply, often correlating precisely with the point she feels secure in the marriage, and after the desired number of children has been achieved. Furthermore, the pressure she puts on the marriage is enormous, compounded by the biological reality of late motherhood. Having children after 37 or 40 is physically, financially, and emotionally exhausting. This stress isn't shared equally. It's loaded onto the stable man who is expected to function as the rock, the provider, and the silent emotional absorber, because she believes she has already made the sacrifice by choosing stability over passion. The children, intended to be the ultimate stabilizers of the relationship, often become the focus of this unresolved conflict. She projects her regret onto the parenting dynamic, insisting on her freedom and demanding that you handle the lion's share of the emotional labor because she needs to reclaim the autonomy she feels she lost when she gave up her exciting life for commitment. Consider the man in this situation. He is a provider, a protector, and a stabilizing force. Instead, he discovers he was chosen for his utility. He is financing a stability project that generates chronic unhappiness in his partner. His emotional investment far exceeds her authentic connection. He realizes too late that he is living out the consequence of her earlier choices. This realization, often hitting around the time the children are toddlers and the bills are maximal, is catastrophic for the man's self-esteem and future motivation. The final phase of regret, the definitive climax, often occurs when the woman hits 45 or 50. The urgency is gone. The children are slightly older and require less constant physical intervention. At this point, the woman looks at the contract she signed out of desperation and sees it not as salvation, but as a cage. She secured what she needed, and now she wants the passion she gave up. She is financially safe, biologically fulfilled, and profoundly emotionally empty. The solution? This is why the divorce rate for marriages entered into late, especially those driven by the biological clock, spikes right after the biological and financial goals are met. She files for divorce, secures the assets and ongoing financial support, and then begins seeking the excitement and validation she denied herself years prior. The man is left with a fractured home, half his assets gone, and the devastating confirmation that he was, indeed, the backup plan. He wasn't chosen for love. He was used for infrastructure. How do you distinguish a woman who has genuinely transformed her core values from one who is merely running a biological clock panic campaign? The answer lies in relentless pattern recognition, demanding consistency, and refusing to expedite commitment. A truly transformed woman openly discusses her past mistakes with full, non-blaming accountability, recognizing the price paid for her choices. A truly transformed woman demonstrates humility and gratitude, not entitlement. If her displayed values, cooking, homemaking, supportiveness, are inconsistent with her 20s history and her current social circle, it is a performance. If she becomes defensive, emotional, or accusatory when you ask reasonable questions about her relational history, she is hiding data that would change your decision. You are a utility, not a lover. The modern cultural narrative that told women they could delay all responsibility and then magically secure a high-quality partner in their late 30s was a cruel, catastrophic lie. The harsh truth is that relationship history matters intensely. Past behavior is the best predictor of future behavior. You deserve to be the first choice, chosen by a woman who is enthusiastically available, whose past decisions reflect the values she claims to hold now, and who sees you as her prize, not her plan B. This perspective gives you clarity on patterns you've sensed but struggled to articulate. We continue to expose these dynamics because the painful truth now is always better than the catastrophic discovery later. To affirm this understanding and show the power of recognizing these patterns, comment with this phrase below: "The wall of regret is real." Affirm your commitment to knowledge and subscribe now. Do not delay your education. And understand this: recognizing the wall is only the first step. Next time we move beyond recognition. We reveal the exact steps to build a life where you attract genuine desire, not desperate convenience. That conversation starts soon, and you absolutely must be here for it.